In the interest of time and to preserve the final conclusions and the practical work, we are going to, and because also INSERM CEO Yves Lévy is not coming because of a conflict of agenda, we are going to give the floor now to Magnus Magnusson, who is going to speak from for UNESCO, and then Louis and me, we will make practical conclusions. So don't leave. You have to engage yourself closely to think about all what was already proposed during this afternoon session and think about the working group you want to be enrolled in. Magnus, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What an amazing, rich discussion today. And I'm not an expert at all in this field, but it has been very informative, and the thoughts that go through my head are everything from, is this possible to regulate, or will we regulate, or what happens if we don't, to what an amazing opportunity this could be for moving ahead, including in areas of the world that are not fortunate to even have science today. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you for inviting UNESCO to be part of this very interesting conference on a topic that is of tremendous interest to the organization's mandate in bioethics, as many of you know, and on which we are following closely. In fact, in our opinion, within today's research and the development landscape, genome editing is one of two technologies that has the potential to disrupt the way we view what it means to be human, and the other one being artificial intelligence. And our Director General is very focused on these issues in UNESCO's work going forward. And since genome editing is accessing the very building blocks of life, both human and non-human, it could theoretically lead to breakthroughs that could bring tremendous benefits to humanity and our ecosystem, while at the same time bringing us to the edge of irreversibly altering the very nature of our genetic characteristic and the genetic characteristics of life around us. In fact, this preoccupation is the reason UNESCO started its reflection on ethical implications of progress in the life sciences since the 1970s, triggered by concern about possible undesirable and unforeseeable outcomes due to the developments in human genetics. The momentum of reflection from that period eventually led to the creation of UNESCO's bioethics program, and later the Ethics of Science and Technology program in the 90s. In 1997, the Universal Declaration on the Human Genome and Human Rights was the first international legal instruments adopted by UNESCO that explicitly called for a prohibition of human reproductive cloning. This declaration also called for a caution on germline gene therapy. UNESCO has also examined different positions of patentability in the world regarding human genomes in the early 2000s. UNESCO's advisory body on bioethics, the International Bioethics Committee, IBC, has also been consistently examining emerging issues in the field of bioethics, including and especially as related to gene technologies. A number of IBC reports have addressed the topics of gene editing, including germline gene therapy, research on human embryonic stem cells, human cloning, and recently in 2015, an update on its reflection on the human genome and human rights. And these reports are freely available through UNESCO's webpage. In fact, we have several current and former IBC members today in the room as speakers, including Professor Hervé Schneiweis from France and Professor Eva Bartnik from Poland, who enlightened us, among other excellent presentations, with different perspectives on the impact of gene editing. The IBC will also be examining the issue of modern parenthood in 2018 to 2019, and will be keeping a close eye on the continued developments in genome editing as related to assisted reproduction. Moreover, UNESCO is also cooperating with other UN agencies and international organizations in the UN Interagency Committee on Bioethics. And in this regard, as many of you might already know, the Council of Europe's Committee on Bioethics, with whom we are closely working together, is currently examining the ethics and legal challenges raised by genome editing technologies. At the UN level, UNESCO has been flagging the need for collective and inclusive reflection about the ethical implications of genome editing and possible discussions on related normative mechanisms as one of a number of frontier issues that should be addressed across the UN system. In fact, this is in line with the IBC's recommendation advocating for exactly such an inclusive dialogue at the international level on the use of this technology, calling on countries to avoid going in alone before this conversation can take place. As you can see, the issue of governance and ethics of genome editing is of foremost interest to UNESCO, as well as to many UN and regional and intergovernmental organizations, of course, and we will continue to push this issue forward whenever possible. As such, UNESCO is looking forward to working with the Association for Responsible Research and Innovation in Genome Editing in the future in pursuit of this purpose. And I think several dimensions have been mentioned today. There's been drawn linkages to the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, which, by the way, just met at UNESCO a few days ago. We've talked about registries, observatories, and I think all of those options should be on the table. And UNESCO is, of course, very interested to be part of that discussion and also to work with you in these directions. Of course, we have instruments like one of them in our division that we manage, for example, the Convention on Anti-Doping that has been very successful, one of the quickest conventions to ever be ratified. And I think one could perhaps look at some of those as well to see how they work and what it takes to keep them going and to make them even more relevant. So thank you again for inviting us, and it's a pleasure to be here and to learn personally, but also for UNESCO to participate and contribute in these discussions. Thank you very much.